Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Pedalboard Preamp. Today is a bass episode. I'm using an Ibanez BTB 5-string. I'll actually show the bass later in the video, but for now let's get right to the tones. I got a 10-band EQ and a Proco Rat distortion on the chopping block today. And as you can see, a little preview into episode 4, which is all about overdrive pedals. Stick around for episode 4 for that. Now getting back to this, MXR 10-band EQ happens to have 2 outputs. So what I actually do with this normally is I go in with the bass here. I send one of these out to my tube pre and my optical tube compressor chain, and that's just basically a clean DI, right? And I'm using the compression just to really prevent any peaks from getting by into the channel and to bring up some of the lower parts of the bass just to kind of round it off a little bit. That really helps with getting the right signal before you get to your audio interface. Just makes it a little easier. I'm not going to go into that any further. I'll actually probably end up making a video on my ideal bass tone, or at least what I'm doing now. For the sake of this series, it's all about what you can do on a pedal board. So what we're doing here is same concept as before. Everything's going into the big shot. That's going, I plug the guitar in here. Check out my other videos as to why I do that. But then it's going down into here to the tuner, into the noise suppressor. The noise suppressor has its own effects loop, which I'm running all of the gain pedals, or any pedals that I'm demoing. So far, we've only really discussed like gain pedals. But so this is for bass. These settings I've actually already used and I've been using in combination with this Rat pedal. And so I really wanted to start there. Now, as I was saying before, this having 2 outputs, I send one to the interface clean, and then I send the other one to this Rat pedal, and then I send that, in this case, I'm sending it to the Axe effects, but you could send it to like a bass amp or something. You could send it into another channel on your audio interface. Point being is that you want a clean bass tone and a distorted bass tone, right? And I blend the 2 in Reaper or in the DAW, right? So for the sake of this video and for the sake of this series, I'm not going to really get into much of that. I'm just going to show you the dirty side, the grit side of that whole approach, right? So you got the 10-band EQ going into the Rat. That's going back into the noise suppressor, and then that's going into the Muar Radar impulse response loader. Right now it's set to a 15-inch SVT, which I'm imagining is their Ampeg impulse. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is that without anything on, I'll play it, but it's very quiet. And because I'm about to add these 2, and we're going to actually bring it up significant amount of volume. So rather than peaking or having to then change the volume on here and gain match, I'm just going to turn these on and we'll get the full tone. All right? So here we go. Now, also I wanted to mention, this is running in 18 volts. Try not to stare too deeply into that blue light because it will haunt you. If I'm like dialing in settings, I'll actually put it on 9 volts because you can run it off either way. There's more headroom with the 18-volt option, and it definitely sounds better, so I tend to do it that way. Let me turn that off again so I don't blind myself. Now, with this 10-band EQ, on top of having the EQ functionality, it also has gain and volume. So you could use this in so many different ways. You could use this as a boost, like you would use one of these. You could use this as a distortion. I mean, it has its own gain circuit, so there's a lot of different things you could do with this. I'm kind of hyper-focusing right now on this one application, so I'm not really going to dive too far into each one of these pedals. Actually, I'm really all about this current tone. We'll probably sweep around on this. 2 reasons for that. One, because like I mentioned before, I'll have to either unplug this, run it at 9 volts, whatever. I didn't really want to demo these pedals too much. I really just want to get to a cool bass sound, check out some different cabinets, and then I'll play something for you. So here we go. Now, not a lot of grit there, but you know, it's still especially in a mix with distorted guitars. That little bit of grit tends to allow the bass to blend with the guitars a little bit better. And having the two separate channels means that you're not really committed to how much of that is in the tone until you're actually in the mix stage. So that's why I recommend doing it that way. However, if you were going to just set it up like this, you could even run like a DI box before this, and that has an XLR out. Use that as another channel. I have a DI box where I could demonstrate that, but that's actually tied up in a different rack, and I really don't want to start taking things apart more than I already have. So, but yeah, it's fairly simple, straightforward thing. You would basically just plug your guitar into the DI box, and then there's a through. The through would go into the tuner, and then this entire chain would be the exact same. And the DI box on the other side would have an XLR out. That plugs into another interface input, and then you have a clean tone before any of this. And you can do that same thing where in your DAW you blend this tone that you make and that one. So there you go. That's all you got to do. I just dropped my guitar pick. And while we're on guitar picks, and I mentioned guitar picks in episode 2 as well, this is a bass pick that I've used forever. I have a bunch of these, and they're cool picks. I don't actually know if these are even being made anymore. I'm pretty sure they're made out of New Jersey, which is awesome. But yeah, so these picks are relatively heavy. There's really not much flex in them, and again, they have a nice grip to them, so they stay put when I'm tracking or jamming. The last thing you want is your pick to be moving around. You just want to get through the song. So highly recommend using a heavier pick if you are going to use a pick on bass. And also, these have like a point to them. I find that makes it a little bit easier to play, and it's a little more precise. I have this 5-string in drop A, by the way. I didn't mention that. Okay, I like that. That's pretty cool. Let's see what's this. Oh, okay. Right on. These are all pretty usable. You don't really have to do that much with the bass tone. A lot of it comes down to the mix itself. That being, you know, where you're putting your high pass filter and your low pass filter, and basically giving separation to the instruments across the, you know, frequency spectrum. And all that really means is like the very, very low end of your guitars, between like, I would say like 120 hertz down to like 80 hertz at most, maybe even 70 hertz. Because if you look at like a frequency response to like a Celestion speaker or something, they kind of hover around 80 to 70 hertz, a very low end. So anything below that you want to just remove. And really anything above like probably like 8K, that's probably more up for debate. And that's also depending on like the genre and things. With the bass guitar, you know, that would be on the low end. That would be a little bit lower. It would be like 60 or like 50, 60 hertz as like your low end. And then like everything under that is like your kick drum. Ultimately, if you're trying to like put this together in context of a mix, you could do a lot of that going in with this EQ. But one thing that I was doing, and the reason why I started using this in this setup, was to change the tone of my pickups a little bit. For this application, I was actually using a cheap Jackson bass, which I showed like a kind of just a glimpse of in episode 2. I haven't done like a full video on it or anything. Definitely need to. That I keep that in drop C, and I'm going to be using that for tracking. It's actually like a short scale bass, and it's super comfortable to play. Holds tune great. Sounds really good. I wanted to just get a little bit more out of the pickups. So you can see really all I'm doing here is like mostly cuts. There's a little bit of a boost in the mid-range. That's going in. When I get into Reaper, the EQ on that bass will look completely different. So the end result can change a lot when you're like doing this kind of stuff with bass. But I really like using this, something that helps my pickups or shapes them. Gives me some options versus having to swap out pickups. This just gives me flexibility real quick. I can dial things in. And then, you know, this is a great pedal. I don't really have to explain it because it's been around longer than I have, and it's awesome. I actually recently got this. I haven't had one of these, so I've been messing around with it on guitar and bass, and I absolutely love it. The guy at the store that I got it from, he mentioned that it's been used on overheads, and I would really like to try that out. So I definitely want to experiment with that down the road. But for now, let's keep checking out some more of these cabs. I also definitely need to get like a 2-camera setup going on so that you guys can see me while I'm doing this part of the video. I'm still going to showcase the guitar and like play a little riff at the end, so you will get to see the bass. This is pretty cool though. I actually haven't, and I mentioned this before, I didn't test this out before I made this video. I've tested these two pedals together in my other chain, but I never actually tried this out. So I figured it would sound pretty good, but I'm actually like way more impressed than I thought I would be. Just based off of how simple this is. You have like a couple pedals here and you're done. All right, here's an 8x10. That's ridiculous. Okay. Next tone. Or cap, I should say. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That one's loud. It's definitely has more attack to it. It's a 59 Bassman. Not sure if you can see that on the camera there. pretty cool sound, actually. Again, this demonstrates how I'm literally doing nothing but changing the speaker, in this case speaker simulation, and it vastly changes the final outcome. Yeah, it's cool. It's got some spank to it. That's also, as I mentioned before in a different episode, one thing I like with using guitar picks, because I can get that like kind of downward kind of flick. And I'm sure I could figure that out with my thumb if I just worked on it a little bit more. This is what I'm used to. But yeah, I just want to make that point. That's it really lets me like get that little bit of attack. Alright, this one's a little quiet. Let me bring this up. Yeah, that's cool. Actually, more than the guitar impulses, I'm finding that each one of these are good. With the guitar, you know, and that was really more because I'm going for like a high gain tone. There was definitely some very good ones, and then there were some that I kind of wanted to skip through. I'm sure I could find something that I could use them for, but in terms of like using it in a high gain application, there were some, you know, some of the better ones. In terms of the bass stuff, every one of these, while they are like a little bit different, they all sound really good, and I could see like using any one of them in a mix, you know, depending on like the band's sound itself. Yeah, that one's cool. I like that. Let's bring this volume down real quick. Okay. And I'm thinking that probably a lot more of the string noise is picking up. I'm actually seeing it on the meter. It's getting picked up on the mic itself, being that my setup is not the best, but I'm making it work. Hopefully the audio is good. I won't really know until after the fact. As I mentioned in the last video, the way that I record these is I send everything into the audio interface, and then I send an auxiliary out, basically like a monitor send, and I send that to my phone, and I record the video with my phone, and using an AVI adapter and my lightning adapter, because it's an iPhone, I'm able to send direct audio to the phone while it's recording a video. Let's check out some more tones. One other thing I think this little experiment here is demonstrating is how the bigger cabs sound better. And I'll demonstrate that right now. Okay, here is a 115. Here is a 4x10. Here is an 8x10. Obviously, it's not the same performance or anything, so there's a little slight difference in terms of the playing, but the tone is very obviously different each time. I actually thought the 4x10 sounded pretty sweet too. Another thing I want to say, and I've been saying this throughout the series, but this especially, you really need like a power supply, and these couple things, you can just plug this into direct to house, you know, or into a mixer or something, PA system, and you have such an easy giggable rig right there. Throw this thing in your gig bag, a couple pedals, and a power supply. You don't even need a pedal board the size of this one. You really just need a couple pedals. You know, I'd recommend having a gate on there, and obviously you're going to want a tuner. So maybe this bottom row here, and you're set. It's such a simple setup, but it gets the job done, and you still have the flexibility. This pedal basically operates overdrive, distortion, fuzz. There's kind of like 3 quadrants to it. This filter shapes the tone. That's really more of a thing where it's going to come down to you're going to figure out what distortion, what amount of distortion you want, and then using the filter to shape the sound, you know, according to what's going into it. So like, is it a dark sounding bass or guitar? Is it a like a bright bass or guitar? For this situation, you know, we're sitting about like 1 o'clock with the volume. I had my buddy here, he was playing bass, and we were kind of just messing around with this, and we stumbled upon these settings, and we decided that we're just going to leave it. This seems to just be like the right amount. It's pretty straightforward. You don't want this to be too far down. At least for this situation. You know, I don't think I would boost it all the way. Yeah, that sounded pretty good to me. I think what we all want to hear is this little riff I put together. That's going to conclude this portion. I'm biffing this ending. I didn't eat much today. I had a busy day. I'm pretty happy with this. Now I'm going to riff out to some drums, and we could hear this setup right here in action. Just going to be bass and guitar. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm back. I moved some stuff around, put that little time lapse together. Now I'm telling you things that already happened. Here's another blue guitar. In this case, it's an Ibanez 5-string BTB bass. Very cool. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for your support. I appreciate you watching the videos. These videos are all about crafting new tones, so I encourage anyone watching to, you know, get their guitar, get their bass out, put together, you know, some cool tones, try some new stuff, and ultimately just have fun playing music If you do come up with something cool that you want to share, use hashtag pedalboardpreamp. I want to see what you guys come up with. What we're about to do is we're going to take that tone that we made in the other part of the video and see that in relations with some Tune Track Easy Drummer 3 drums that I put together. Again, thanks for your support. Please share my videos, and I will see you on episode 4.